America thought it had cornered China, then Beijing just stopped answering the phone. Not a threat, not a speech, just nothing. Billions in trade deals. Frozen. Ships rerouted mid-ocean. Soybeans rotting in silos while Washington congratulates itself. And somewhere inside the Treasury, a single line in a leaked memo rewrote the victory Trump had promised. No evidence of compliance. That sentence just erased $1 trillion and possibly the illusion of control itself. The domestic fallout started immediately. Across Iowa and Illinois, John Deere dealers said farmers were freezing orders for new machinery. Chicago Fed surveys showed farm credit delinquencies ticking up for a third straight quarter. Producers are waiting to see if China actually buys, said Rob Johansson, former USDA chief economist. Behind the scenes, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent's office circulated a confidential memo obtained by Bloomberg. It warned that most of Beijing's indicated commitments remained unverified. The document listed 5 areas in limbo: media, rare earth mineral shipment, soybean storage silos, chemical barrels labeled fentanyl precursor, export shipping containers, Indo-Pacific Security Conference meeting, rare earth export licensing, soybean quotas, fentanyl precursor enforcement, export control relaxation, and the proposed Indo-Pacific Security Dialogue. Each, it said, was subject to further internal coordination on the Chinese side. The consequence is clear. Washington acted first, Beijing not at all. The United States paused tariffs, softened scrutiny for Chinese IPOs, and signaled leniency on chip export licensing, while China offered only vagueness. That imbalance now defines the entire negotiation. Rare earths were meant to be the showcase success. Trump had called it the mineral breakthrough of the century, yet Reuters customs data show China's rare earth exports in October fell 11% year-on-year, their steepest drop since 2021. The Ministry of Industry and Information Technology has not amended its quota system or issued new permits. Bloomberg quoted CRU Group analysts saying the underlying structure is untouched. At General Electric and Raytheon, procurement teams are bracing for renewed bottlenecks. United States firms still depend on Beijing's licensing cycle, and Chinese regulators can tighten those valves anytime. What Washington celebrated as a concession remains an instrument of control. Trump's farm victory lap is unraveling just as fast. In the White House Rose Garden, he promised a record soybean renaissance. 12 million tons this year, 25 million annually thereafter. But United States export data contradict that. October shipments to China totaled just 190,000 tons, barely 10% of projections. FT analysis of Chinese customs filings shows importers prioritizing Brazil and Argentina, whose beans remain cheaper by $25 a ton. Those missed purchases ripple outward. Trucking demand is down. Grain barge volumes on the Mississippi are soft, and fertilizer sales are cooling. Bloomberg's Midwest Manufacturing Index fell 0.8% in October alone. We can't invest on slogans, said Zippy Duvall of the American Farm Bureau. So Beijing's motives, they're pretty straightforward. Port inventories already cover nearly 5 months of crushing capacity, and state stockpiles exceed 40 million tons. With soy meal margins negative and import taxes still at 13%, there's really no economic reason to shift toward the costlier U.S. supply. You know, as Rabobank strategist Michael Every told CNBC, you don't buy what you don't need. That absence of follow-through isn't just paperwork, it's leverage. By withholding implementation, Beijing pressures Washington to keep tariffs suspended. The U.S. gave up negotiating tools in anticipation of enforcement that, well, never came. Now, export controls tell the same story. Trump's team claimed Beijing agreed to pragmatic coordination on high-tech materials, which implied some relief for American chip suppliers caught in cross-sanction turbulence. But China's Ministry of Commerce released a 14-word note promising only dialogue on mutually beneficial standards. Since then, no change has been seen. Companies like Applied Materials and Lam Research remain under scrutiny, while China quietly expands its own semiconductor subsidies. And enforcement on fentanyl precursors hasn't improved either. According to Bloomberg Intelligence, only one joint police operation has occurred since the summit. The US DEA confirmed data sharing remains limited, and no new prosecutions have been reported. Analysts at the Brookings Institution call it symbolic compliance at best. The result is a spreading unease in American industry. The Institute for Supply Management's Manufacturing Index contracted for a 15th consecutive month. Factory employment is down 42,000 jobs since the trade war began. And steel producers say input tariffs still outweigh any export gain. Tariff costs are eating us alive, said one Midwestern plant executive quoted by the Wall Street Journal. The celebrated reindustrialization looks more like a slow bleed. Higher costs, frozen investment, and foreign uncertainty. Foreign policy experts view Beijing's stalling as deliberate. Zhou Bo of the Carnegie Tsinghua Center told the Financial Times, China sees negotiations as tactical. Delay increases its leverage. Each postponed reform buys Beijing time while eroding Washington's momentum. Inside Trump's circle, the split is widening. Bloomberg reports that Peter Navarro urges an immediate tariff snapback, arguing pain focuses minds. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross favors patience to calm investors. Besant is said to push a metric-based middle path. Tariff relief only when commitments become measurable. The political cost of hesitation is rising. In key farm states, cooperatives are petitioning Congress for new relief. The American Farm Bureau estimates $5.6 billion in projected losses from the stalled deal. Meanwhile, energy exporters expecting Chinese LNG orders see cargoes diverted to South Korea and India. Bloomberg NEF reports China signed all its 2025 long-term LNG supply with Qatar and Russia, none with the United States. The message abroad is unsettling. European trade officials told the Financial Times they fear Washington overpromised and undersecured, distorting global commodity routes. Australia's Fortescue Metals notes Chinese steel demand softening, nullifying any knock-on benefit from U.S. diplomacy. Beijing, by contrast, projects composure. The yuan remains stable near 7.2 per dollar after targeted central bank interventions. Exports to the United States rose 6% in October, and new foreign investment inflows jumped 14%, driven by Southeast Asia and Europe. Calm confidence reinforces the perception that China holds the upper hand. At home, Trump keeps selling triumph. They'll deliver, he told a Michigan rally, dismissing fake news economists. But the Wall Street Journal cites aides, saying he's privately exasperated by Beijing's ghosting. Chinese media barely acknowledge the talks. Reuters journalists in Shanghai note that even state-run outlets frame U.S. claims as unilateral interpretations. Global Times editorials describe Trump's announcements as domestic theater. To Chinese audiences, nothing has been conceded. As of mid-November, none of the 5 headline pledges, rare earth relief soybean purchases export control coordination fentanyl enforcement or the Indo-Pacific framework, has been enacted in law or regulation. Everything remains, well, under further internal evaluation. For multinationals, this gap is costly. Tesla's Shanghai suppliers warn that conflicting U.S. content rules and China's export curbs could disrupt EV output within months. General Electric's turbine division forecasts input shortages by spring 2026 if mineral quotas stay frozen. As one executive told Reuters, political headlines don't keep assembly lines moving. The effect radiates beyond economics. Allies watching this breakdown are recalibrating their own leverage strategies. Japan's trade ministry is fast-tracking rare earth recycling programs. The European Union is accelerating its Critical Raw Materials Act, aiming to halve dependence on China by 2030. In Washington, focus is shifting to what can still be salvaged. The Treasury's Financial Stability Dialogue, led by Besant and People's Bank of China Vice Governor Pan Gongsheng, remains the only functioning channel. Officials call the sessions technical. Insiders call them maintenance diplomacy. China, meanwhile, is broadening elsewhere. The State Council just finalized new import frameworks with Brazil and Indonesia, bypassing the United States entirely. For Beijing, diversification is strategy. For Washington, it's erosion. Here's the larger implication. Once leverage is surrendered, it rarely returns intact. Reimposing tariffs requires new political capital, and allies lose confidence each time U.S. enforcement slips. Wall Street is already pricing that in. Goldman Sachs trimmed its fourth quarter U.S. growth forecast by 0.3 percentage points, citing weaker exports. The 10-year Treasury yield slid below 4.4% as investors sought safety. Markets are adjusting to disappointment, said Torsten Slok of Apollo Global Management. In this silence, China's strategy becomes visible. By doing nothing, it gains everything. Relief from pressure, stability at home, and time to strengthen its domestic supply chains. Reuters analysis shows state-subsidized magnet plants in Inner Mongolia running at record capacity, offsetting any export restraint. The United States, in contrast, faces the optics of retreat. Subsidy fatigue is growing, the fiscal deficit sits above $1.8 trillion, and Congress is signaling skepticism toward further farm bailouts. We can't subsidize uncertainty, said Senator Chuck Grassley. Inside the USDA, one senior official told Bloomberg the mood is exhausted pragmatism. Staff now track Chinese import data daily, hoping for even a symbolic order. None have appeared. Late Friday, Trump posted on Truth Social, "Beautiful deals take time." Then he boarded Marine One as reporters shouted whether China was breaking its promises. He smiled, waved, said nothing. In Beijing, the next morning's headlines focused on infrastructure spending and domestic tech self-reliance. Not the US at all. The silence spoke louder than any press release, and so the self-proclaimed trillion-dollar victory fades without collapse, dissolving through inaction rather than defiance. One side waits, the other insists, and every passing day tilts leverage further east. The last image feels almost scripted. American cargo ships sit motionless off the Pacific coast, engines silent, containers half-loaded with goods that have nowhere to go. Import licenses from Beijing never arrived, and the silence says everything. No announcements, no cancellations, just deals suspended in midair. Proof that in global power politics, promises don't always break. Sometimes they simply fade, unanswered until the waiting itself becomes the message. We're glad you're enjoying this video. Please like and subscribe. Check out another video that is now on your screen.